My husband and I are in our late 40s and got married in 2019. This is our second marriage, and surprise, surprise, we're not having children due to our age. We each have two kids from our previous marriages. My husband has a daughter who's away at college and a teen son who lives with his mom mostly, but sometimes with us. Our house is my husband and I and my two kids, who are young teen and tween. On to the actual event. My husband had a great uncle who recently passed away. My husband inherited a gently used GMC SUV. I don't know a ton about cars. I know the car is a 2017, and I've seen used ones with low mileage go for nearly $20,000 online, sometimes more. Here's the issue we're having. Remember how I said my husband's son is a teen? My husband thinks the car would be a great gift to him. He plans on giving him the car regardless of how I feel. The fair thing to do would be to sell the car for as much as we can and divide that money up equally between the four kids. That way everyone can benefit, not just my stepson, who happens to be a teen. My husband has been mean to me about this. He's telling me that I have zero say. It was his uncle, and the car was given to him, not the family. He said his son has an after-school job, and he needs the car to be less of a stress on him, me, and his ex. We all sometimes have to chauffeur him to and from work since he has no car. He's a teen. If he gets $4 to $5 grand from the sale of the GMC, that is more than enough money for him to buy a starter car that can take him around town and work. My husband agrees that he technically can do that, but he's not going to because he wants his son to have this car. I'm stressed because he's basically telling me he's going to do what he wants and that I don't get a say. Aren't a husband and wife supposed to come to an agreement together? He told me if I had a relative die, we would do whatever I wanted with the inheritance, and he would not interfere one bit. I have major issues with this logic, though. He even went as far to say that we could sell the car and split the money up amongst the kids, but now he'll buy an equal value car for his son out of our joint bank account. I thought it was a jerk thing to say, but am I an idiot all along? You are the idiot. The entitlement, so gross. Your kids should not be getting anything from their stepfather's inheritance. Yuck. What he does with the car he inherited is his business. You just opened your husband's eyes, though. Now he knows that he married someone very greedy and selfish. But what about me? Wow, your greed is appalling. You want your kids to benefit and get $10,000. That's it. You are thinking only about yourself and your kids. If the roles were reversed, do you honestly think you'd have the same idea you have now? That after only being married 4 to 5 years, your great uncle meant so much to your new spouse's kids that they should get an equal inheritance? That's a bunch of crap and you know it. Quit thinking the world owes you something and think about other people for a change. Technically, he could just split it between his biological kids too. I too think a $20,000 value car is a bit expensive for a new teen driver, which at the son's age is what he is. Also, did Dad ask the ex-wife her opinion? Is he going to pay for the car insurance and the registration too? That won't be cheap. I hope he gets a separate bank account and only puts in what she needs to cover household bills in their joint account. The fact that they didn't discuss it among the 3 adults responsible for the kid, which she is, or she shouldn't need to do a dang thing for the kid, but Dad having the final say on what he wants to do with his inheritance, is pretty rude. It's everyone's the idiot here situation, but I hope you set up a separate stash from hubby. He obviously doesn't do calm discussions of opinions. My dad and his wife blended their families 7 years ago. My brother, a young teen, and I, a teen male, come from our parents' marriage. Our mom died 9 years ago. Beth, Luke, and Laura come from my dad's wife's first marriage. My dad and his wife also have Katie, a young female child together. I have a pretty complicated history with a learning disability. I was diagnosed before my mom died, and I always struggled with school, reading, and writing. I use tech to help me write stuff like this. I can speak fine, but actually reading or writing anything, including numbers, is terrifying to me. It has meant that I need a lot of extra help in school. My mom used to read stuff like menus out to me. My brother started doing this when he got better at reading too. It's something I can't hide, and it's embarrassing as heck. It's something my step-siblings have made fun of forever. Beth made a really hurtful comment the first time she realized it, and her mom corrected her. But since she and her siblings were not happy with their mom meeting my dad, and since I would do things differently, like I never did homework at home, they would tease me and taunt me behind their mom's back. I spoke up a few times and it got corrected pretty hard. Eventually, it got to the point where I no longer saw the point of saying anything. Around that time, it got to the point where I'd tell my friends to pretend my step-siblings weren't part of my family or my life because I didn't want them to be. I got my license over the summer and got permission to drive my dad's car. I've been bringing my brothers places sometimes, and suddenly, my step-siblings have been trying to be nice to me. I ignore them. I say no to bringing them places. A few days ago, Beth wanted to attend this dance practice related to her dance class. Her mom couldn't take her because she was sick, and my dad wasn't around. My dad's car was at home though, so she asked me to bring her. I said no. She followed me around begging and I kept saying no. Finally, Luke and Laura joined in, and they said that we're family and should do things for each other, and that I never help them out. I told them I only help people I care about, which doesn't include them. Their mom overheard, and once my dad got home, they told me that what I said was really unfair and cruel. They took away my ability to drive the car. Dad wanted me to apologize and say that I didn't mean it, but I did. I can see they all think I'm wrong about this. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. They're mocking you for a disability. That's an idiot move. Instead, tell your stepmom that mocking your disability is ableist. Hopefully your father and stepmother use this as an opportunity to nip this dysfunction in the bud. She decided not to take no for an answer and has always tormented you. I think it's too late to nip this in the bud when they've already let it fester for years. The plant's dead and rotting by now, not budding. They only want to be family when it's convenient for them. No one took your side when you were being bullied. Accept the punishment and don't care about the revoking of privilege. I say this because it is unlikely your parent and step-parent will take your side and return the privilege, and it'll just make you feel worse expecting support from people that'll not give it to you. Sorry you're going through all of this. I, 24 female, have a toddler son named Cass, who's the light of my life. He's a real sweetheart, and if he had it his way, he'd be carried around in my arms all day long, only to be put down when we come across a cool bug. Unfortunately, he doesn't talk very often, which I was worried about in the beginning because, as a young mom, I worried about almost everything. Still, the pediatrician told me he'd likely become more talkative over time. I'm currently looking into speech therapist to see if that'll help a bit, and we're also learning sign language, so Cass can switch to that when he doesn't feel like using his voice. He's such a smart kid, and he's so curious about everything. All he ever wants to do is explore and learn about new things. I'm so proud of him, and I love being his mom and seeing the world through his eyes. My mom, 50, doesn't like my approach to my son's tendency to not speak very often. A few times he'll be asking for something, and she'll refuse because he isn't using his voice. It's one of the main reasons why I never ask her to babysit, because it bothers me when she does that, and I stop it every time. We were all at a restaurant with my stepdad, 55, my stepbrother, 30, and his wife, 30, and their son, James, preschooler. When it came time to order, I read some options out to Cass, and he signed yes for the meal he wanted. James spoke to the waiter on his own. When the waiter walked away, my mom got upset with me. She said that because I'm the parent, I need to tell Cass to get over his stubborn attitude about speaking, and that his refusal to do so is ridiculous. My stepdad then expressed concerns that James was saying full sentences by 2 years old, but Cass is older than that, and he'd only ever heard him say about 5 words. I told them both that I didn't appreciate them trying to have that conversation with me in front of Cass at a family lunch. But then my mother said that if Cass had an issue, he should use his voice to tell them that, instead of relying on me to do it for him. I ended up flagging the waiter down and asking for my part of the bill and if I could get the food to go, because I didn't think it was fair for my son to have to sit there and listen to them talk about him like he couldn't understand what they were saying. Once I paid and got the food, we went home. My mom texted me later saying that I was doing my son a disservice by not making him speak, that it was rude of me to leave lunch like that just because I didn't like the way the conversation was going, and that it spoke to my immaturity. Truthfully, if I had pushed him to do it, I know he would have verbalized what he wanted, but he clearly felt more comfortable signing, so I didn't feel the need to do that. Regardless, was it an immature or idiotic move to leave like that? Absolutely not the idiot. I have a child who's on the autism spectrum and has selective mutism. The situations you're describing sound so familiar to me. And the worst thing you can do is push the issue and force them to talk. Not only will it not work, but it can also worsen the issue. You're doing right by your child. Your mother is being an ignorant idiot. Rather ableist of your mom to act like signing isn't speaking. It's called sign language for a reason. And not only is it not constructive to compare the two kids' speech abilities, but it's also needlessly cruel to do it in front of them. You're exactly right. They're speaking about him like he can't understand. But again, that's also ableist, because not speaking is obviously not the same as not hearing and comprehending. Good on you for standing up for your son. Unfortunately, it sounds like they still intend to keep pushing you about this, so be prepared for how you'll deal with it. Going low or no contact until they stop bringing it up and communicating with your child respectfully is a good option. My dad is not a warm man or a great dad, but he makes some effort with his kids. He adores my mom, but really doesn't seem to care about anyone else. He was never the warm, affectionate type, but at least he made some effort to know us. The issue is, I've been with my wife, Maddie, for 6 years, and he knows nothing about her, literally. He's never tried to initiate a conversation with her beyond basic greetings, hasn't been very responsive when she talks to him, and basically after 6 years, they're still strangers. I'm not convinced my mom actually likes Maddie, but she still has basic small talk with her and asks her normal questions like, how work is going, what are you doing for your birthday, what are you into, etc. Maddie's told me a few times that my dad makes her uncomfortable with how little he interacts with her, and she feels like he doesn't like her. I've explained that it's nothing personal, but I've also been paying more attention to their interactions. We recently spent a weekend away with my parents, and he only spoke to Maddie once, and it was to ask what she wanted on her sandwich, and only because my mom sent him to ask. I also recently learned that he doesn't even know her birthday. I confronted him, and he said he didn't marry Maddie, so what does it matter? I was pretty annoyed and said that it was weird and hurtful. I told him he needed to treat her like a human being and a family member. He said he is treating her like a human being, and he doesn't want to talk to most of them either. I finally laid down a boundary that he cannot meet our son, due in January, until he shows some basic interest in Maddie. I explained that my wife is not an incubator, and that he just can't be around our son unless he can treat her like a person. My dad rolled his eyes but said, okay. But my mom went crazy and said I was ruining the family and asking if this was really coming from Maddie or me. She said her own father-in-law knows nothing about her. Dumbest argument ever, as my dad has been in no contact with him for decades. My siblings all agree and say I'm being crazy and should leave him alone. My mom told me that Maddie isn't all that special and we aren't entitled to my dad's interest. You are the idiot, OP. He doesn't even know her birthday. You act like that's some awful tragic thing. Who cares if he doesn't know her birthday? She's not a toddler who'll get sad if people don't get her a birthday present. Some people are just super introverts. Are you really going to deprive your child of his grandfather because of some weird idea in your head of how people should interact? He's not insulting towards Maddie. He just doesn't talk to her because he doesn't talk to anyone. You and your wife need to get over yourselves. If your dad makes your wife uncomfortable because of his quietness, she doesn't have to see him. Not the idiot. I have social anxiety and it's not that hard. My dad is also socially awkward and doesn't even speak very much English, and he still tries. They're placating a grown man. I get not being outgoing, but some nods and smiles and small talk are not that hard. You're right. Your wife isn't an incubator, and your mom's reaction shows me this isn't about your dad just being a dad, but their dislike for her. My mom actually told me that Maddie isn't all that special, and we aren't entitled to my dad's interest. Wow, then they're not entitled to the baby's interest. Does mom maybe not want dad to have a relationship? If I stayed with my in-laws all weekend, and they only talked to me to ask me what I wanted on my sandwich, so bizarre, so awkward, I'd leave. They obviously don't care or want me there. Why stay? It's just rude and disrespectful. You're going about this wrong. There will never be a bond between your parents and Maddie. They made that clear. Go no contact with them and any others who defend them. There will never be any peace. So let them stew in their juices and save yourself the grief of dealing with them. I'm going on holiday with my husband's family next week. We have a baby. Husband made the bookings for the resort and flights. He managed to get a package that gave us 1 suite and 2 regular rooms between the 7 of us. My husband and I assumed that we would have the suite since we have 3 people and also made the bookings. However, when we called his parents and siblings to discuss the itinerary, his mother had different ideas. She started giggling and said she was excited to have the suite to herself and father-in-law. She started talking about seeing the balcony's stunning view from the suites. I stopped her and told her no, husband and I would be in the suite. I reminded her that she and father-in-law, sister-in-law, and brother-in-law always come to our room to play with the baby, and that I'm not comfortable not having a private bedroom. I reminded her that the suite came from my and my husband's points at that hotel chain, and if she wanted to upgrade, she could pay for it. She started telling me off, saying I was selfish and she deserved a holiday. Husband shrugged and cut her off by saying he booked the suite for us. She hung up the call. Sister-in-law and brother-in-law told me she's been fuming since and saying that I'm a greedy idiot. Wait, she's not paying for the suite, correct? It's your points, and you used your time to book rooms for everyone? Massive not the idiot. It can use their money and upgrade to a suite if they want it so bad. However, it's scary how much control she has over the family if the siblings have the nerve to call you a greedy idiot. Let her fume all she wants. Having a suite with a baby is essential. Baby can nap without being woken up by someone in the living room. Mother-in-law can play with the baby while you nap. Why she thinks she's entitled to the suite is beyond my comprehension. Selfish and entitled. Yuck. Poor father-in-law will have to listen to her yak about the whole thing forever. Honestly, cancel the trip if they're not grateful. They're just going to complain all the time. But be careful. If you and your in-laws aren't traveling together, expect her to get to the hotel first and try to claim the suite. She'll try to lie to the front desk and say that her son, who booked the rooms, agreed that his parents would have the suite. If the front desk allows this, good luck getting her out of the suite after you arrive. She may make a public scene if the front desk refuses her request. Just be prepared that your husband telling his mother that she isn't getting the suite may not be the end of it, as far as she's concerned.